Donald Trump is the next president of the United States. Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Julia Roberts, every A-lister in the world you can possibly think of, except for Elon Musk, has taken a bit of a kicking tonight. Comedian Geoff Norcott joins us now. Is the age of the celebrity endorsement dead, Geoff?
Well, it does seem like that because if you look at it, if you look at all the people that endorsed Kamala Harris,
Mm,
Beyonce, Bruce Springsteen, Eminem, the
yeah.
Avengers, Iron Man, Hulk. I mean, I would say that from the Avengers, they didn't have Thor or Star-Lord. So they didn't have the
Well,
full complement of the Avengers, depending on how you feel about that franchise. I mean, it is interesting that, there were times a while ago when people, even when people, Taylor Swift came out for Kamala, people said, well, is this it now? Is this finished? But I think all the evidence is that celebrity endorsed, like Hulk Hogan, Trump had Hulk Hogan.
yeah.
Dr. Phil, probably Steven Seagal. I haven't checked, but I'm going to guess Steven Seagal was Team Trump. So maybe the lesson here, Harry, is that the celebrities from the 80s still carry a fair bit of clout.
It is astonishing, though, what we've seen in the last few weeks. The sort of mass hysteria of the US media. You had ABC calling him a Nazi because he did a gig at Madison Square Gardens. You've had CNN and MSNBC sort of losing their minds overnight. In a weird way, do you think that actually helped Donald Trump actually and his supporters come to almost do a Millwall and think everyone hates us, but we don't care?
I think the fundamentals were always that people might have had personal issues with Donald Trump. There were certainly
Yeah.
aspects of his
I mean, there's
campaign and things.
a lot of them you can have, yeah.
Yeah, it's not difficult. But I suppose like the American people maybe didn't have the luxury of pinning it down to, a crass joke at a rally. They were looking at leadership really, and the economy in some ways. So I think that people will misread this result if it is as it seems, and they'll read all sorts of, is America taking a dark turn into fascism and far right politics? I don't think it necessarily is. I think that what happened was a lot of people have forgot is that Kamala Harris, she was part of an administration that propped up a president that was clearly senile and pretended it wasn't happening for ages. And throughout the campaign, a lot of people weirdly have had a sort of a bit of senility when it comes to remembering that happened like basically 2 months ago.
It appears that she didn't outperform Biden in a single county so far. Obviously, they're still counting a few of them, but isn't it come down to it? Is she was just a bit rubbish as well?
She was not a strong candidate, and I am beginning to think that vibes aren't a solid indicator of political outcomes. Because when I went to bed here in the UK, Harry, the vibes were telling me that it was definitely going to be Kamala. And I listened to a lot of political podcasts, and certainly the centrist ones, and they were looking at the garbage joke and a couple of other things, and I don't know, something that Oprah said, and they'd come to the conclusion that there was even talk that Kamala like might win it at a landslide herself. So it just shows how little people know, and I think it's another one of those democratic outcomes that's very unsettling for the political establishment. And also, if you look at what seems like the Latino vote, seems to
Yeah.
have held up pretty strongly for Trump. So once again, they probably thought that joke about Puerto Rico was pretty crass, but they also thought, can I let that be, the determining thing that guides my vote? And I think, maybe after this election, and I don't want to cost my industry work, is maybe people just don't book comedians for rallies. I mean, maybe that'll be
Well,
one
the
thing
other
we
thing
all
is
learn.
that I'd love to pick your brains on this. I was watching one of
Mm,
Donald Trump's rallies when after he'd appeared in the garbage truck in the big row about Joe Biden saying whether Joe Biden called Trump's book
mm.
garbage, and there he was in the truck, and then he came on stage and he was telling this story, and it was almost sort of point perfect stand-up comedy of how his staff convinced him to put on the bin man outfit because they said it'd make him look slimming, and actually. They've got their comedian right there. The comedian's in the White House now, isn't he? He's a funny guy, right?
Donald Trump definitely has strong comedic instincts, and as somebody who's chosen to make their living that way, it can cover a lot of ills. One thing I would say about that is comedians, we are slightly emotionally damaged people as well. So take from that what you will, but. I just think that when people look back on this campaign, they'll look back at moments like obviously Trump was he was funny, he said funny things. He also towards the end of the campaign did start to say weird things as well. Had a weird, intimate situation with a microphone, put it that way. So that was kind of odd. But when you looked at what Kamala Harris was saying, or it was always more of a case of what she wasn't saying. There was that key moment at the end of that big interview when they said to her, "What would you do differently?" Nothing comes to mind. That is not something you want written on your headstone.
We're a
Nothing.
long way, exactly. We're a long way from the sort of brat Summer and Kamala Harris sort of going for joy. She started out saying she was going to restore joy to this race, and ended up screaming fascist and Nazi by the end of it. Do you think she went wrong going so negative?
I think that it was interesting that right at the end she went back to joy, but also joy
Yeah,
is a massively abstract concept, isn't it? It's like one
yeah.
person's version of joy isn't just saying joy. I mean, it comes back to what you say, like vibes. What does vibes mean? What
And what
does
about
brat?
that laugh though, as well? I mean, when lots of millions of Americans are struggling to pay their bills at the end of each month and seeing their prices go up by almost 5%, why was she laughing like that?
Well, we might differ slightly here. I thought her laugh was possibly the best thing about, it was a generous laugh. But I would say this, like cozying up to mainstream, will be something that politicians think differently about because that sketch on SNL on Saturday Night
Yeah,
Live, what it was,
it was pretty cringe.
well, it's sort of like if you get a politician on a comedy program, you think, all right, they're going to rip them now. And it seemed like Kamala might have written the script herself, and it was based on a number of weak puns like, we want to stop the dramala. You've got a new step mamala.
Take my Pamela. The American people want to stop the chaos
and end the drama
with a cool new stepmamala.
And I think it was a weird thing for a British audience to see because the idea here is that you punch up. Sometimes that could
Yeah.
be a bit kind of ambiguous in itself. But there she was, with this co-host Maya Rudolph, who is a fantastic comment. But looking at her with these loving eyes, and I thought, I don't know, you look at that, how that sketch landed versus how it landed with Trump going on Joe Rogan. And, you have to say, or Trump being sort of associated with MMA. I think that the alignments of what matters in terms of celebrity and even the comedy world have completely shifted in this election.
Is Trump good or bad for Trump presidency? Good or bad for your trade? It's probably pretty good for journalism, whether you agree with the
Yeah.
outcomes of it or not. But is it good for comedy? You got your Trump
Yeah.
impression down to a T?
Do you know what? Annoyingly, it's one of the impressions that I can't do, but I'm gonna have to work. I'm gonna have to work a bit harder. Yeah, I won't lie. My industry, we were thinking about, what is the angle on Kamala? Probably a lot of people in the left would just be pleased in this country that she got in and give her, a bit of a soft soaping. But with Trump, he's always offering up content. I mean, he's the king of content
Yeah.
and moments. So yeah, I mean, I won't lie. Just from a purely selfish point of view, I've got a good 7 minutes on Trump for the next tour, which lives to fight another day. I know that's not the big breaking news this morning, but certainly, if we had a stock exchange for my comedy, it's ticked up by a few notches.
Like the price of Bitcoin this morning as well. Geoff Norcott, thanks for joining us. Nice to see you.